Welcome back to the Freemilesmc, and we're today here with the Kawasaki Ninja 300, a really good option for beginner riders and also for people who potentially want to get into track riding. And it's a really beautiful bike. It has a parallel twin with 300cc. This bike is not being sold like this anymore. This is a just used market thing, basically. The bike that came after it was the 400, and this bike still has the 300cc engine that has 39 horsepower and 27 newton meters of torque, which is enough to get you around, most definitely. And this is a really beginner friendly option, as this bike has a slipper clutch and also ABS, so you're completely safe on the bike. And also for all your sports bike desires, it has a 140 rear tire and 110 front tire. All in all, a really beautiful machine, especially the way that it's standing here with the black and the pink. And this was made like this by Lisa. Welcome to the channel. Really nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
And yeah, like, how have you done all these modifications? Have you done them yourself?
Yeah, I did them myself. When I bought the bike, it was second-handed, and all what is now pink was red. But it just didn't feel like me. I didn't like the black and red. And then I just went on scrolling on internet, and then I thought, oh, pink is really cool. So I put on the tire stickers and the clutches and everything. Even my keychain is pink. And in my gear, my helmet is also black with pink, and the visor is also pink.
That's actually really cool. Does it have like the visor, like the reflecting pink, like kind of oilish color?
Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool. And also, like, you've not just done like the levers and the little livery in the wheel, but also like the objects and mirror are like, oh, objects and mirror are losing, not closed. Oh, that's cool. And yeah, all in all, a really cool bike. And from the used market, how much have you paid for it, and how did the whole like buying the bike went?
I bought it for 3,000. And how did it go? I started searching or like looking for a bike when I didn't even have my license.
Okay.
But I was just looking around what I liked, and I came across a Ninja, and I really liked the looks of it. So I bought it in November last year, and I didn't have my license, so it was just standing in our like living room, and I just kept looking at it. And yeah, I bought it with my stepdad, but because it was a bit cheap, he was with me to look if everything was like still working, and he said it was a really good buy. So
that's really nice to hear, and also really nice that your stepdad helped you in that way, because of like how it was with my parents, I ended up with a 600cc Supersport, unrestricted, no ABS, nothing, from the late 80s. And yeah, it was still a really fun bike and good decision, but in retrospect, everything went well. Yeah, so all in all, a really cool bike, and I'm very curious of how it's going to be to ride the bike. The bike has a 78mm seat height. Does that work for you so far?
Yeah, I'm a bit smaller than you, of course, but the bike is perfect for me. I can stand with my feet flat on the ground. Okay. So no falling down with it.
Yeah, you're 1.70 m, right? That's like 5'6", I think.
Yeah, I have no idea how that works, but I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's perfect for me. I'm also comfortable on it, like also on what longer rides. So yeah, for me, perfect.
Yeah, I will see how it is for me. For context, I'm 1.96 m or 6'5". So yeah, let's have a look. To be honest, this is fine. It still works for me. My legs go past the tank molds, but that is fine because they're like half open in a way that my knee can just push onto the frame. And really, like, legs-wise, it works really well. Of course, I have quite a strong knee angle, but this is also like, it's a sports bike. And from the handlebars, already comfortable. I can already feel like if I ride this bike for longer, I will not get back pain. Yeah, if you want to use this bike for track riding, you most likely have to put lower handlebars on it, because to make this bike rideable for people like me, they went with quite high handlebars for a sports bike. So yeah, let's see how the thing handles. Let's go. So we're now out on the road, and when sitting on the Kawasaki Ninja 300, it feels pretty good. Like, you have such a chill position, like literally you can sit on this bike forever. The bike does not have a gear indicator, which can be a bit tricky, I have to say though, for beginners, as they like need to feel the way into the bike. But for me it's completely fine. Also, you can hear very well how where the bike roughly is. And here now in the turns, actually it's quite cool and satisfying because it's like so small, so you can literally just like use it. I have a bit of struggle leaning off the bike with my size, to be honest, but apart from that it's all good. And I really like that you can literally just like shift through the gears actually. Like on any other Supersport, you're basically done in like first or second gear. Yeah! This is pretty fun. What a cool little racer of a bike, I have to say. And for public street use, this definitely does everything that you want it to do, because you don't absolutely obliterate the speed limit, but at the same time the bike is not really slow. Like, you can very well compare it to, in the car world, of something like a Golf GTI or a Mazda MX-5. And still, I really like that they have like actual instruments. The bike accelerates alright, definitely for a beginner. Also in like day-to-day riding here, like roundabouts, this bike really shines. That's kind of where you have the advantage of that the bike doesn't have the lowest handlebars, but still like manageable. Also here we see like the whole, that's not a police car, the whole rev range. It's really cool. The bike definitely has enough sporty feel to it, and it's really nice for a beginner because you can really like try out the sportiness of motorcycle riding and like the sportier bikes while not breaking your back. So how quick can this bike get going from being quite slow? Actually plenty fast. Actually absolutely fast enough, to be honest. With the mirrors you have a bit the typical problem that you only mostly see your shoulder, even though it's not as bad as is on some older bikes, but it's still not really ideal. Also, the suspension handles like somewhat more of a side wood like this still very nicely, which is good. So it's not like super hard, while still being completely fine. And the bike tends to get a bit weaker above 100 kilometers an hour. That's really where you then feel that this is a 300. But up until then, it's all good fun. And I have to say, that's actually really good, because most of the fun is had until then if you're talking about public roads. What I like, you get all the sporty experiences without like the stuff being scary. Like you feel safe on this machine, and you feel safe as a beginner, and that's really cool, because the bike doesn't absolutely rip your arms off while still being able to carve some corners pretty hard, and it doesn't break your back. For $3,000, this is really decent. This is a really decent bike for $3,000, and also it gives you plenty of sporty experience. It feels a bit more like a sport tourer. That has to be said. You don't have your super aggressive sports bike position. I was actually thinking that it could be super aggressive, because I thought the smaller bikes are more capable, like when it comes to actually track riding for many people. So I thought maybe it's more aggressive, but it's actually more sport tourish than I thought. That has the big advantage of you basically not getting back pain like whatsoever. Something that I do have to say about the pressure point of the brakes though. It's a single front disc, and brake wise I'm a bit like, okay, that's a bit lacking brake wise. You will get used to the 39 horsepower and 27 newton meters of torque. But for the first 2 years of riding, this is definitely fine, and I also think this is a cool bike to keep to turn into a real track bike. One thing has to be said though, the bike has upside right suspension, so in comparison to the other bikes like the Yamaha R3, the bike is lacking a bit in that regard. But also in comparison to a bike like the Yamaha R3, this bike is a lot cheaper on the used market, around €1,000. and at the same time you have the Yamaha R3 models have a lot more kilometers on them on eBay. And also something that has to be said, beginners will not notice the difference in the suspension, and people who want to have this as a project bike to turn it into a track bike will exchange the suspension anyway. If you would have been talking new bikes, most likely the Yamaha would be the better bike, but on the used market, this thing really shines. I actually think there's some beauty in like smaller displacement bikes who are not that powerful, because you can actually just like wring them out all the time and like completely, and that's really, really cool actually, because you get to ride all the bike you paid for on public roads basically. And yes, more is allowed in the A2 license, but this is plenty enough to get you into trouble. And for all the people who are looking for the most powerful A2 bike, this is not going to be it. And also, if you want the most power you can get out of your A2 license, it makes more sense to downgrade a more powerful machine, because the gearing makes a big difference as well. With a bike, like other A2 bike with the same amount of power with a different gearing would walk all over this. For my wishes, the bike could be a bit more aggressive from its body position and everything, and I have to critique a bit the size of the bike. It's a general manufacturer's thing. I don't get why companies just do all their small CC bikes and make them for like super small people. Because yes, I can sit comfortably in my of my size on this bike, but I cannot really like lean over the tank and properly get into the pocket of the bike and like just like swing the bike from side to side how I could with a bigger bike. And sometimes my elbow hits my knee when opening the throttle, and I cannot really do a U-turn because the handlebars hit my knee. And yeah, in general, the bike handles my weight fine when it comes to cornering, but literally if I do like really small speed maneuvers, I need to lift up my leg to counterbalance, because the bike doesn't want my big frame on it. But the suspension does the job fine. Also, one thing I like is that the DFT dash has a little clock. That's pretty cool, and you sometimes get an indicator for when to upshift, like in a little sign, but you don't get the gear number, and I think the gear number would have been more usable. So as you can notice from my helmet here, I'm now back from the motorcycle ride, and I have to conclude this is quite a fun bike. A bit different in the way that I first expected, but still quite good. First of all, from the outside, the bike really looks like a Supersport, and that was actually one of the reasons why you bought the machine, right? So I would say the looks really sell that, in my opinion at least.
Yeah, the thing I really like about the bike is the way it has two headlights instead of one. I think that's a really like positive point about it. It makes it the bike look a bit more aggressive than with one. Yeah, and I think in general it kind of looks like whenever you put it somewhere, people like what bike is it, like a 600? And I'm like, no, it's a 300. Yeah. So yeah, you will get like asked about it.
But I mean, that's pretty cool, and I agree with you on the whole design language. I also really like the round headlights. I kind of prefer the round ones, but like you're absolutely right with the more aggressive look. And with this bike being from 2013, like you have a bit of a different design language than the rest of Kawasaki, because this is not as Kawasaki-ish, but it still looks like really, really nice. And also this has been like quite a cool bike that you also see in some movies, like I think the film The Villainous that inspired the John Wick bridge scene, like that is featuring this bike. And it's not just looking like a sports bike. This machine also somewhat handles like one while still being very comfortable. Like I had the experience, I literally had zero back pain on this machine whatsoever. How is it for you? Because you're now a bit smaller and you reach probably more over the tank and have a more lean forward position, because like due to like how the ergonomics are, I'm kind of like very upright on the bike. How is it for you?
I think for me it's still also very comfortable, even though I'm smaller. But I don't feel like my wrists are hurting or my back. It's still comfortable after like 2 hours, 3 hours. So yeah, I think that's really fine. So yeah.
And I think that's a really important point to point out, because this is a beginner's bike. And when I started riding motorcycles, I also started on a sports bike. And the uncomfortable riding position of like an old late 80s, early 90s sports bike is close to what a self-built cafe racer feels like. And it almost made me quit riding, actually. And this is not going to happen with this bike. And I also feel like for beginners, yes, it's not the fastest bike, and also there are other faster, like small super sports, but this is not really about the speed. And when you look at the lower price of this machine, it's actually like really fine, and you still can hang with like the big bikes and the turns, and you actually get to use all the bike that you paid for. I mean, if you do, you still would go to prison, but like technically you can do that without like being really afraid. And like it's really nice that you can really wring out 5 and 6 gear, and that kind of makes me a fan of smaller bikes. And do you actually plan on keeping this machine? Because like it's now your beginner bike, but like with this kind of aspect, also I heard you wanted to get into track riding. That's actually kind of a bike to keep around, I feel like.
Yeah, well, maybe now that you mention it, I will maybe keep it, but I'm just planning on keeping it stock for like just my normal rides, like the everyday rides. But I do gonna have it on track next month in Meppen in Germany.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, so I'm really excited to try that. I've never been on the Freak.
Oh, this little mouth breather of a dog.
Do I need to get him inside, or?
I think, yeah, maybe.
Okay, wait.
Yeah, short interruption.
Cool.
Whoops, he's messing up the audio.
Oh no!
You got it.
I got it.
Yeah, we will back in a second. Yeah, so we were at you going track riding in Meppen, and that's so cool. Like, how much money does that actually cost? Like, because I'm curious, I want to go track riding too. I currently like want to repair a bike to the point that it can go on track again.
Yeah, well, I am going to do it for 100 euros, and then you get 4 sessions of 15 minutes, and you will also get like feedback from someone, because you will ride in a group based on your experiences.
That's like really cool. That's like money-wise close to like karting.
Yeah, so I think just for checking out, like I've never been on track, so I think for the first time it will be really good for a really good price. Yeah.
That's actually really, really cool, and I feel like if you then want to keep the bike, it's a really good project bike for turning it into a race bike. You can like switch the suspension and all this kind of stuff, and in general I feel like track riding is really often less expensive on something like a just asphalt supermoto track, and you can do that with this kind of bike, and that is really, really cool, I have to say. And also, as a beginner, this bike is not as expensive to keep. I mean, you're a student. How much money do you pay for it in like insurance?
I think for insurance I pay like 35 euros a month.
Okay.
And then I get covered to damage from myself and others. So you have like three different things here in the Netherlands. And I just chose the middle option, so it's 35. I think the cheapest is 25 or 30. So yeah, but I do have my student job and I work at a local restaurant. You actually been there to get an ice cream. Yeah. So I just keep up with working there so I can afford the bike. And when I bought it, I also used a bit of my savings.
Oh, okay.
So yeah.
That's actually really cool. I bought my first bike from working in hospitality as well, and then like around 30 bucks here in the Netherlands is kind of cheap. Like a bigger bike would be like 130 bucks a month most likely. So
yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so all in all, I would say it is a really, really cool bike. And of course, yes, they're quicker bikes like the Yamaha R3 with like upside down suspension and stuff like that, but those bikes cost $1,000 more and have more kilometers on the clock. And if you just want to get into riding, I think this is the perfect thing, because the bike still handles really, really fine with its suspension the way it already is, and it's plenty of fun to ride. And small bikes in general have like a place in my heart. They're all just really fun because you can use all the bike you have. So with that, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and feel free to subscribe and ring the bell, and see you guys in the next video. If you have a bike that you would like me to review in Belgium, France, or the Atlantic coast of Spain, definitely feel free to write me an email. And thank you for all the patience for this video to release. I sadly currently have a broken PC and have big trouble editing. That's why there are at the moment a few less videos on the channel, and see you guys next time.